he's so eager already because he has a good old guy, young guy that he's excited about. Right?
I think I have a topic that will bring people together.
Okay. So that's a tease to stick around till the end of the episode of this podcast. This podcast, which happens to be called Stuff Summer Says with
Steve,
Steve. Good to see you, Steve. Good to
good to
good
see
to
you, Darian. Good to hear you.
chat with you. All right. Let's see. What are we going to talk about today? It's just you and I today. It's just hanging out, but we've got stuff in the works, so that's all I'll say. Oh, wait. Speaking of stuff, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, my new stuff came in. It's a little wrinkly, but it's a new batch of like straight out of the mail today. So
Nice.
fits
It says
great.
we are. It looks great.
Yeah, it says we are. It fits great. I changed the t-shirt supplier this year, effectively. I'm very happy with the choice.
Okay,
It's a
good.
much more comfortable t-shirt, and that is not me selling it to you, although I am selling it to you.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Got a comfy
newsletters,
T-shirt.
yeah, sign up on the newsletter, save 10%. And then we're kind of doing an item of the week thing. So you might as well buy it when it's on sale then, because then you'll get mad at me when it's not on sale anymore. Okay, anyways, podcast name, we did that. We're gonna give you a brief rundown, game recap, TV recap, etc. Steve has a special project that he came up with he was anxious about the idea, and I think it's a fantastic idea. So we're gonna be here to support him with his good idea.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um,
No,
I
there's no
think
pressure
that's
at all. Okay.
so no pressure there. And then yeah, that old guy. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay. Um, how was your Saturday? Did you have a good
I think
Saturday?
mine was better than yours. I think I should ask how was your Saturday because you were in the stadium. How were you doing?
I was fine. I was a little grumpy at halftime. I think collectively everybody was grumpy at halftime, but I think I was fine. Um, I've seen that movie enough times to kind of know how usually that goes, and it went the way that I thought it would go. Now, did I think it was going to go that way from the get-go? No, absolutely not. I think I feel much better after going back and watching the game. And I have some comments on that I want to, we'll get to that when we get to the TV portion of today's programming. But I, I feel like the defense kind of screwed around and thought it was going to be a walk in the park in the first half. And then somebody smacked them upside the head in the second half and said, hey, figure your shit out and it'll be fine. And I think they were fine in the second half. I think they only allowed like 90 yards, something like that. What, 3 points the entire second half, two picks. I think they looked the way they were supposed to look in the second half. Um, I have also come to feel confident in Penn State's offense, which is a bizarre feeling because I don't think I've felt that way in 7 years, 2017 maybe. Um, yeah, I think Penn State's offense is the real deal. It's funny, like I think I saw they're already the fourth most explosive team in the country. If we want to kind of, continue to tout that metric and that mark. But I think what also is interesting is like everybody's kind of complaining about the third down percentage, but like they don't really aren't getting the third down very often, so it's not that terrible. Like I'm not that concerned about it yet. Um, so I think that's about where I'm at with Saturday's Penn State football performance. I thought Drew had a good game. Um, I just think the defense just needed a smack in the face, and I don't think they can do that again. Like I think they learned that lesson. I think it's a good time to learn that lesson. I also thought that like I don't know, Connor Bazelak, if you go back and watch that first half, like their quarterback, Bowling Green's quarterback, had one of the best like halves of football I've seen. Like there's a couple
Yeah, it's a good
throws that you're
player.
like, how did you get this off? Type thing. So yeah, that's about how I feel. How do you
Okay.
feel?
Well, I ended up watching more of the game than I thought I was going to watch because I thought the most competitive game at noon, silly me, might be Texas Michigan. Turns out not the
It's
case.
not.
So I watched more of Penn State, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't concerned. People were here that were with us at home watching, like, oh, this is going to be horrible. I'm like, I don't think they're dropping this game. I think this is just that game. Like this is this year's that game, and it's just early, and the defense found somebody who schemed against them pretty well, right? Some of those crossing routes and some things that they had to figure out how to stop. And you can't do that more than once, though. I mean, everybody's going to look at the film and say, okay, what they do here? How are we going to do that? So they've got to figure that stuff out so it doesn't happen again. And I think they did good corrections in the second half. I think the one of the interceptions, right? Like that was what I was thinking. Oh, they're going to say they have two interceptions, and one of those was pretty crappy throw by the quarterback. Just
Yeah,
it was like a stat stuffer interception for the defense, but still a stat stuffer. So
nice arm punt.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I like to call
basically,
those.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes. So no, I wasn't. I didn't think they were. This was the demise of the program or the end of the
Mm-mm.
season because they played poorly. I just every team has one of these games, right? Every year, and this just happened to be this team's, and they probably can't afford to do it again. You know.
As the dogs start to, they're the ones fired up mostly about this. My other thought there is, I think one of the things that maybe in the James Franklin era that I will give James Franklin probably doesn't get enough credit on is like halftime adjustments. He's always generally a better second half coach than he is a first half coach in situations like that. And I think you saw that. I think I think we're just getting a different experience. And I think it might take some learning curve collectively from everybody, whether it be players or fans, to kind of understand how the Tom Allen defense works. Um, I see a lot of people kind of being anxious about the Abdul Carter thing. I thought he played great, and I thought that was interesting to see people fired up about that. I think the sack thing is a little frustrating just because that's like Penn State's bread and butter, right? Of getting guys home over the last however many years, decades, really. Um, but I don't know. Like I said, there's nothing that hit the alarm bells for me. And then I think everything felt a lot better watching what 4 hours later, getting home and seeing Notre Dame line up for a 62-yard field goal and try to win a game against Northern Illinois and not even get close.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you go for them, right? You go from almost assuredly in the playoffs to I don't know if you're assuredly out, but like
Well, but
there's gonna be some one loss teams that don't have worse losses than that. You
between that
know,
and then them, I mean, the highest seed they can ever be is a five because
right?
they cannot be a yeah, like it's yeah. Not to say it's over for them, and obviously they're ranked now, but it's funny like everybody kind of collectively forgot about how ugly the Penn State game was after that because of how ugly that
No,
game
Penn State
actually
doesn't
kind
have
of
the
was.
issues. They have a quarterback and
Right.
other things and whatever else, and Penn State played with confidence. I mean, frustratingly so when they were struggling, right? Like I'd see some defensive players make a play when you're down. I'm like, they're celebrating. I'm like, really? Like, this isn't going your way right now. Maybe just shut up and play. But that's old guy mentality. So it's clearly a confident group. And I think that's a good thing. So
I think that's coming more out through on the offensive side of the ball. Like they
agree.
between the deep throw for a touchdown, the three-play touchdown drive, which was, I guess, included in that deep throw. The other deep throw that I go back and forth on an offensive pass interference on, and then who knows if Harrison Wallace catches that one, the other one hunted down in our northern end zone. It feels night and day difference. It's a better offense, and I think that is one of the reasons why I think Saturday actually kind of felt, when you can reflect on it a little bit, like it felt good to know that Penn State's offense can kind of be the one that carries the weight as opposed to Penn State's defense over the last umpteen years.
That's fair.
Um, so um, let's see. Other things. I guess the two interesting things that I want to hit on game wise. The first was the 409 touchdown and everybody taking their phones out, and even Steve Jones alluding to that. I thought that was funny. And then the other main thing, did Penn State change its numbers? Because it looks like Penn State changed the font that it uses for its
I
numbers.
saw you talking. I don't know if it happened this year. Did it happen just this year? Has it kind of
It
been around?
appears that it's this year. Like it looks different compared to previous years. It looks slightly like a lot of the numbers look a little bit thicker and maybe a little bit shorter. What did you notice on TV when
I
you
didn't
were
notice it until
watching?
you pointed it out. Really, there
Really?
wasn't really. I mean, sometimes you wonder with that because there's kids that like have single numbers, right? And they always feel like the single numbers are bigger than if you had
Yeah,
17, if you had just seven alone, it feels like the seven is always bigger than the seven and the 17 when you're looking at jerseys when
right.
they're alone sometimes. So if you're not looking at it closely, and I wasn't checking the uniforms out that much, I was like, look at that. Why is that person so wide open when he's going down the field for a pass? So I wasn't, yeah. And honestly, the minutia I was looking at, and maybe I was looking at maybe you couldn't. I don't think you said you could see him where you. were sitting, but I was looking at the low level ribbon boards, right? Because you could see those in the shots, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's us. Oh, okay, there's Pennsylvania Lottery, like on the bottom of the field level scoreboards, those LED boards.
I I guess we can kind of do TV or stadium experience first?
Well, you saw the stadium first. Let's go there. Let's do
Okay,
your
okay.
chronology.
I'll
Stadium
do
and
the
TV.
okay, stadium and TV. Okay. So those ribbon boards, we can't see them where we sit. But there is a ribbon board from about the like 10 to 20 yard line, home sideline, northern end zone. Um, that you will assumedly be able to see on TV, but it wasn't on Saturday. Uh, but there's so many people standing there,
Oh, that's true too.
you're not gonna be able to see it. Like there's that many people on the sidelines that you're not gonna be able to see it. So I thought that was interesting. Um, so far, my initial takeaway on the season is the Beaver Stadium experience in some ways feels different, and better, and in some ways his hasn't really improved. I think the main disappointment was the Wi-Fi situation. Um, the Wi-Fi is very fast underneath the stadium. It is like almost not almost as fast. We have pretty fast internet here, but like faster than some people's houses' internet I've experienced. Um, and then in the arena, it doesn't work at all, and I feel like that misses the whole point of fixing the Wi-Fi. Um, and I think. Like obviously you could sit there and say, well, you shouldn't be on your phone during the game, but you want to take pictures, you want to text people, let them know where they are, like let other people so that they can talk to you. Hey, I'm gonna go get drinks. Do you want this drink or that food? Like, etc. That was disappointing to me to for them to kind of tout that and then for it to not work. I think that was one. Um, the ribbon board experience is fine. Like there's a lot of ads, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I thought they integrated them nicely. I am happy to see out of town scores, but as I wrote, like needs to be the font size needs to be improved. Um, you cannot see them from the like if you're looking across the field, there you cannot. And I have contacts in, so it's not like I don't have clear vision. And then same thing with the scoreboard itself. I think it's just a little too busy with the new. They made it look like the rock walls, like down
Hmm.
at the tunnel, which I think is a great touch. I think it just needs some sort of pop to the numbers, maybe some drop shadow, something graphically to improve that. And I think it will be a nice touch. It just needs to be a little bit bigger because you're looking up trying to glance and see that there. I think like I said, I was impressed. The other thing I wasn't very impressed by was the like branding experience around. So they've got all these stadium stuff, they've got all this like signage, etc. The food vendors are not the ones that you would see like at a county fair anymore. They're like actual very nice stands with like the matching branded font and logo. It looks nice and looks clean, it looks professional. It doesn't necessarily improve my experience, but it at least makes it better. So that's like I would give Saturday an overall B. Like I think a solid B, a solid like 84%.
Okay, that's good. Well, you had me. You had me at. It's not a county fair anymore, so I'm looking forward to my experience when I do go in of stuff being a little more polished and whatever else. So I think for the money people are spending, we've talked about that before. That's kind of the expectation, right? This is what I'm going to get. So, and I even saw, I don't know if you wrote it or somebody's comments to it or somebody else said, even a touch like, was it the north end zone where they added some porta potties, right? So people don't have to walk all the way to whatever. Just some things like that aren't a crazy expense, aren't hard to do, and you're thinking about making it easier for the fans in some ways. And plus, get in and get back out and watch the game.
Right.
Go do whatever you need to do and get back. So,
I think my biggest issue with the food experience is I appreciate the increased number, and I love the fact that beer sales aren't holding up food sales, so to speak.
mhm.
Like you can go get your beer separately from your other food. But it is a little annoying if you want something besides water that is non-alcoholic. And like I said, I don't drink during games. I get too anxious during a game to drink. Plus, usually I have to drive after the game, so I don't really feel like dealing with that. So I think it would be nice if to get like they've got this giant Pepsi deal. It's apparently renewed or whatever. It's apparently back. Get some bottled sodas in there. It's not hard. I think it would be a beneficial thing. Um, but yeah, I think those are kind of my main highlights and points. I think the there will be I'm interested to see what it's like. Everything's like fully operational come Ohio State, UCLA, even of what that experience is like. I don't know. The one thing I am anxious about is the number of like they really went all in on the ribbon boards, and I know we joke about that, but like there's going to be three ribbon boards that you can see if you sit in the north end zone from in the south end zone, and there's a lot of ads, a lot of stuff going on there that I don't know if they need that many ads. They
No, I think
could,
people are looking at a lot of different stuff, right? It's kind of like Bloomberg TV, 30 years ago used to be like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on now. But people with phones and TVs and whatever else and are used to looking at multiple screens and different
right.
focal points. So I think that'll be okay. And I think the white, when they go white out, right? Like all those things will be white. It'll probably really lighten the place
Mhm.
up. And yeah, well, good 84. Good for you. Good for them.
Yeah, good.
Nice start.
Solid 84.
So we grading
Uh,
TV stuff now? What'd you find?
well, I was gonna. There is one other thing. It's the bad news that
Okay, go
the
ahead.
fourth quarter thing is back, and I hate it. It's they tried to improve it, and I think they like actually made it worse. I'm sorry, it's just bad, and they need to not do it anymore. I, I don't,
I thought your idea that you wrote about in the blog, and if you're not reading his blog, you should be, about a hype video is smart.
hey,
The,
it's
the, the,
also whoa. It's also your blog too, okay, Steve? It's called
okay,
with
it was
Steve.
your idea this time. Hockey, Penn State hockey did it about 5 years ago, and they've gotten away from it, unfortunately. Like, it's ready, big, fast paced hype video. It's time for the third quarter and big fonts and routes, and let's get going. And people just responded to it. It was overt, but it wasn't forced. And there's a difference, right? Maybe if it was some special, exciting celebrity doing the thing, whatever else, but yeah, don't
It,
even need to hear it and know it's not me.
it's kitschy, I think is what it is, and I think it I mean they were doing it like it's time like they did fourth quarter videos, and I thought they were good in previous years. And I think there's an arsenal, there's a deep library of videos and stuff that they could showcase and use that I just think would get the blood flowing a lot more than that. So anyway, that's it. TV recap. How was your thoughts on the TV presentation of Saturday's game? Did you consume this? How
It
did you
was a
consume
noon game. It was a noon game on BTN,
it?
and
Okay,
I got a noon game on BTN.
okay. That's
Right,
about
like
how I felt
nothing
about it.
special, nothing wonderful. I one of Danny's friends was here, who's 32 or three, however old she is, and I said, "Hey, can you hear what they're saying?" I'm to the point now where I need to make. I'm like, "Can you hear what they're saying over what the crowd is doing?" Because that's now my new thing. I mean, a couple years. If I wanted to hear the crowd, I'd be at the game. Like, just turn down the ambient sound just a little bit so I can hear what you're paying these people who are the broadcasters to say. So I struggled with that a little bit. Like, I don't know if they made good points or not, because there were a couple of times it was like, what?
I think that's a Fox thing. Like I know
Yes,
the
it's a
game was on,
Fox.
but I
Yes.
think that's like a Fox. Like we're gonna try to sell you the experience this way, and that's what we're gonna do. And I noticed that as well. Um, my big takeaway from the game, and it wasn't until somebody tweeted this during the game, and I was like, I saw it and it was like I thought about it, and I'm like, I'm paying attention to the game. I'm not gonna worry about it. So then I went back and rewatched the game, and I was like, wow, the score bug, the Fox score bug, and now I can't unsee it, is way too big.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
You cannot miss it. It's way too big. It doesn't go away during the plays. It's cutting guys off. Like it is too large. It either needs to be sh like shrunk or moved up to a corner, um, back to like maybe that single
Or something else,
line.
right? Like, they could give it the movement when a play starts, right? That it becomes smaller, right? You change the
Yeah,
chyron and it becomes smaller as the play begins. And then if you're coming out, it starts bigger. Yes, I agree. You're right.
it's like, and now that this was pointed out to me, like I can't unsee it, and it's going to bother me even
No,
more
Fox is college
because
stuff across the board, and that's BTN, right? Like, you can't miss it.
I was thinking about that, like with big noon kickoff and like watching. I forget what game we were. Oh, I think it was the Steelers game, and we were getting yesterday. We were getting the ads then for big noon kickoff coming this
Yep.
week, with the Alabama and Wisconsin game, and it's like I don't. There's something so over branded, borderline corporate that it doesn't fit in with the college football vibe that maybe ESPN or even CBS has in some ways, and I think we're seeing that, or I think Fox is still getting lapped in a lot of spaces, and that's one of them. Um, did you end up consuming any of the game from the comfort of your hammock that you sent me pictures
No,
of?
because the TV's not out there. So no.
Uh,
I thought about listening to Steve. I thought I was gonna do that. I thought Michigan, Tennessee, or Texas would get uninteresting enough, not as quick as it did.
yeah,
And I thought this would be uninteresting. But I'm like, okay, I need to kind of pay attention to this because it's a little closer than I thought. So no, no hammock time. But
okay.
that's okay.
Well, I mean, hopefully the Kent State game is nice and
3:30 start. Geez, that'll be bedtime by the time that game's over. Holy
that's
cow.
true. But I would like to say I think I have like a full point lead over you in our guessing
Yeah, I know.
competition.
Well, that's because I'm always hoping for noon. Like
Yeah,
if you
that's
look,
true.
all my start times are biased earlier.
Okay. Uh, anything else that we missed? I'm looking at my list here. I think we got everything, but I feel good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Um, I feel good. Okay. You set it up because it's your idea.
So I saw a preseason magazine a couple weeks ago. I think it was Coach Franklin who was being quoted. And I thought it was Jeff Rice who wrote the story, but I just couldn't find it when I was done. Who talked about the pressure of this season and having to perform and rankings and whatever else. And he made reference, and it was kind of an offhand. Well, there was this game in 1994 that Penn State played that they didn't win by as much, and it hurt them from what I understand, or so. It's kind of like an offhand reference like that. And I'm like, 94 Illinois is like an essential Penn State game to know. Like you win as number two, you win, you come back, not you don't win by as much, and you never get a chance to play for the national championship. So that kind of sparked like, what are those essential games? Maybe they aren't wins or losses, but what are the moments that when you say 94 Illinois, or you say, like I'm thinking Alabama Auburn, you say kick six, right? It's the return
Right.
for the touchdown, right? So I was wondering what those games were for Penn State. So that was kind of my prompt of like,
Okay.
what are those games that you say a score or a date or a number and
Okay. I think I nailed the prompt. Um, Before we begin, I do want to clarify because I asked you this question via text. So we each came up with a list of 5 games? Is that how many you came up
Yep,
with?
yep. I
Am I
actually
gonna
did make a
ruin
list.
two of your games if I say the national championship games can't be on there?
If you say the national championship games can't be on there, you're not going to ruin two of my games.
Okay, perfect, great. Because I don't. I think those are too obvious. I think would be the best way to say that.
Well,
When I
you
came
might
up with
impose on one.
you.
You might impose on one of my 5 if they take both national championships.
Okay, all right.
We can
Let's
talk
do
through
it
it. I
this
may
way.
change it to
Let's
my
let's
right.
talk through it. Okay. I want to do this relatively chronological order without giving each other's picks away. So I'm going to say, what century is your first game in?
Century? How about what decade? I got one in the 60s.
I have one in the 40s.
Okay, go ahead.
So my
It's like, what's your card? No,
yeah
you go first. Yours is
no
last. So go ahead. 40s. Go ahead.
okay. My first game in chronological order, I think might not necessarily make the immediate list for most people, and maybe it's just because I'm a good Penn State history buff. But I have the 1948 Cotton Bowl on here. But it's really for other reasons. Obviously, it's related to Wally Triplett and Denny Hogard, um, basically being told that Penn State can't play if they play, and then Steve Suey comes out and says there will be no meetings. We are Penn State. That's the brand, and
Right.
I think that is quintessential. I think that is really probably the first important, relatively modern Penn State football game, but maybe more so what happened off the field. But it,
No,
it,
and
it
that's the
all
crux
relates
of
to the game. Yeah.
that's the crux of the prompt, and that's the even if it's my wonderful friend Lou Prado would say, no, it's not that. It was something else that was the start of We Are. I love you, Lou. I don't care. Like it's okay to embrace a little bit of fun history, like sort of true stuff
Right.
that makes it worthwhile. So no,
Right.
that's a great pick.
Well, and I think it's like the like you go back and read the history of Nittany, and whether it's the Native American tribe saying that it was this word that just means solo, or the made up princess story as well. Like
Yep.
but I think that is where this all starts. So, what year is
I
your
never
next
thought
game?
you. I forgot. I mean, I was thinking about that one. I didn't think my first game is '67
Okay,
when
so
they
that
go to
one's before my
Miami.
next one. Yeah.
Yeah, they go down to Miami. They play the sophomores. Like Joe starts sneaking in sophomores on defense and replaces the seniors who weren't happy with him. Who, the seniors in the team weren't happy with the new coach. Kind of like coaching change that happened a few years ago. And he slowly puts the sophomores in the game, and then the sophomores are starting for the next couple of years, and they have the undefeated season. So that run of the stuff that people feel the disrespect, and we were undefeated and we didn't win championships, starts in '67 at Miami with the sophomores playing more.
Okay. I have a game that's related to that one.
Cool.
However, it is not a Penn State football game.
Is it on your list?
But it is
Wait, you have
on
a
my
non-Penn
list.
State football. This is good.
I have
Great.
I have a non-Penn State football game on this
Okay,
list.
maybe you didn't understand
Two
the prompt, but
years,
you're gonna make it
two
great.
years after, 2 years after, Richard Nixon goes
1961.
out and says,
Texas. Okay.
"I will
Yep.
declare the national champion the winner of Texas and Arkansas."
Arkansas. Yep.
And Penn State, the first time they really go undefeated and effectively have this great year under Joe Paterno, gets screwed out of the national championship. Joe goes on, I think, was it in the media or graduation that he kind of called that out?
I think that was media. Media.
Okay.
Didn't know anything about what I knew all this about football this year and didn't know anything about what is something, years later.
But I think this is the first case of Penn State being legitimate case of Penn State being screwed over for a national championship claim. And then another one probably in 94, which we will get
Nice.
to.
Yes, look at you. Two old ones. Good for you.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
Next.
My next one's mine all skew younger now. I'm not till 80s again now.
Okay, you're
81.
next. You're next. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a pretty
48
big gap.
14. Yeah, 48-14 for me. Down at Pitt, playing number one Pitt. Penn State's down 14-0. Comes back to win 48-14. In that rivalry game, the lore of that with like the big hit on defense by Chet Parlavecchio, maybe the hit out of bounds by Chet Parlavecchio, just the rivalry stuff, and you beat number one team with Dan Marino 48-14. I have one more on my list that's a number, but where I think you can say the final score to some people, and they're like, yeah, okay, I know what you mean.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I
that's
mean,
why that one's there for me.
I think even like if you're ingrained in, again, Penn State history, and like I know about 48-14, and like what the significance of that, and kind of what a moment that was. Um like I think that's still the gotcha pit, I think. Like
Mm.
I think until like your generation phases out, so to speak, like
Yeah, no, and then you
it's
always
gonna be
have the
around.
doubling down with Paterno there with the Jackie Sherrill, right? Like a couple years after that, you can't, I'm not going to retire
Right.
and leave the world of college football to the Jackie Sherrills of the world. Well, here's some salt, here's your wound, let's have
Uh,
at it. So,
so okay. All right. The next game on my list isn't till the 2000s, so you might have another one.
I have, if you're not to the 2000s, let's see, I have 2004, that is. Oh, I have the reason for the column, or the reason for the prompt. I have two. So I'll go with both of them chronologically. So I took the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, or against Miami, just because, right? It's the national championship. It's the most watched college football game, one of the most watched college football games ever. It's the good versus evil. It's the fatigues. Even though Penn State had played in the Fiesta Bowl before, I think if you say Penn State and Fiesta Bowl, there's one game people think of.
Right.
It changed how TV does stuff. I mean, they changed the time of the game. They changed what was going on. It made the Fiesta Bowl a meaningful game. It just all those tentacles. And then the reason for the prompt for the story, the '94 Illinois game. So like that would be on my list. Just
So
because. Go ahead.
I had a 94 game on my list, and then I took it off my list. Mainly because I figured, one, you would have a 94 game on your list. Two, I actually would argue the Rose Bowl, but I think that probably significance nationally, you're probably right. But I think that Rose Bowl in a lot of ways is probably the second of those unclaimed national championships, if you
Oh yeah,
will.
and you got the great play early in the game, right? That
Right.
every,
Yeah.
right. I mean, for me, the '94 piece kind of goes to Arkansas, Texas in the same way of like not getting the respect, right? Like, and I've always felt that in the big. I don't feel, and we've talked about a lot that the Big Ten's trying to get Penn State. But I do feel if Ohio State's number two and goes into Illinois and is down by a boatload of points and comes back and rallies to win late in the game, nobody's bitching about what Ohio State did. They say, "Oh, what a character win that is for them!
Right.
What a great job
Right.
by them." And Penn State in those instances does not get that credit.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, all right. When's your next game?
I'm done to the 2000s. I only got one left. One, two, three,
Okay.
four. I'm done till 2004.
Okay. I think we have the same one.
Go
Is
ahead.
it just 6-4?
Yes.
It has to be like it's it is the poster child of the dark years for Penn State
Yes.
football. It is fascinating if 6-4 and those seasons happen at any other program with any other coach, like uh, particularly now in this era of college football, that coach is gone, and it's so interesting to kind of consider that game being played and then 6-4 happens and just like, how do you score? It's almost impressive that they scored 4 points. Like they should almost get extra points for scoring 4 points.
I
Correct?
kind of gotten two extra. It would have been great. Yeah, and I think that's why the game fits in my mind the prompt, right? Because the result, the other end of 6-4, is the Orange Bowl in 2005, right? Like that's awful, god awful, and then you come back and you have one loss and you win in overtime and it's a great night in Miami, but you can't have that night unless you have 6-4. And there's been enough Orange Bowls through the years. You could probably come up with a list of 5 Orange Bowls, right? But there's only one 6-4, and you could say to fans of
Right.
your age and older, "Hey, 6-4," and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, 6-4."
And I think it's like even now, like it's like with Iowa being Iowa and the way they are, like first off, we just went 2 solid minutes talking about 6-4 without even recognizing
Right.
the other team, but that's how
Doesn't matter.
like that doesn't
Right.
matter. I think the
Although
other
there's only
thing.
one Big Ten it could be, one Big Ten
Right,
team it could be.
right. But that's what I was gonna say. Like it's become such a meme almost. Um, so yeah, um, I think that I agree with that. I agree with the logic that you can't have the Orange Bowl in 2005 without it. I had on my list and then took it off the the 2005 Ohio State game.
Yep.
I had it on there. Um, took it off in favor of 2 other games more recent. But those would be mine. So are you done? You got your
I'm done.
five
Go
out of
ahead.
the
Let's hear
way.
those two
Okay.
more recent games.
So I think Michigan 2012, the overtime for
Yep.
overtime,
Yep.
Allen Robinson catch, Bill Belton run. I think a stamp of that Penn State isn't going anywhere, can still hang, can still play football at a high level, still be still make noise nationally. I don't think that Michigan team really ended up doing much that year after that. But I think I have to wonder how much of that their sales are deflated from that. Brady Hoke goes and gets fired a couple years later. Like that probably was kind of the start of all of that, and then Michigan kind of goes on its run. There's a there's a good timeline jump, like a good alternate universe from that point
Yep.
on. I think would be a good one. And then of course the other one I think I debated, but I think you have to put the Ohio State 2016 game on this list just because I think it is the signature win of the James Franklin era. Um, in a lot of ways, like it's also kind of like this everybody's still chasing the memories or
Mm-hmm.
the vibes of that year in a lot of ways. I think if you're really into Penn State history, and we've talked about this, we just had a player on to talk about this. I think you could make the case for that Minnesota game a week before, or a week before. Um, I think the after that, I think the Big Ten championship probably certainly yes, and I honestly think that Rose Bowl is is on that list too. But I don't know if it's a top five or one that I would consider a top five of these.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple like the Snow Bowl against Michigan where they had all the snow and they brought the convicts in to clean out
Okay.
the stadium and whatever else. Like again, just in terms of whatever, the 4 OT game didn't make my list. Nebraska 2011. Like does that game at the end of the season just because people remember the teams in the field and it just being different
Yeah.
and the end of an era there, like does that make the list? 9 overtime Illinois. Like there were a bunch of other stuff that
What about There was another Nebraska game that I actually thought about putting on here. Nebraska 2002. Um,
Taliaferro? Is that Taliaferro's game
I
back?
don't think so. I don't no, that was Miami when
That was Miami. Okay.
he walked out of the tunnel.
Yep.
But I think that game
That was that night. Yeah, that was that
that
night game.
that is the first Penn State football game in my lifetime. So I was 4, 6, 8 when that game happens, 2002. That was the first Penn State football game I can remember there being a legitimate buzz about the week leading up to. Um, I think that one probably should be on or would be on there. Maybe not a top five. Were you going to say the other Nebraska game was it
No, I might. I think
the out of bounds
2002 was what I
catch?
was thinking because I guess I was
Okay.
thinking. I forgot. I was thinking Taliaferro was my Nebraska, but it was Miami. Um, no, that Nebraska game because I there was yes there was a buzz. Forget which if we took both kids in that game. By then we might have had 4 tickets. Like and it just that was it. It felt more. There was more buzz. There was more juice in that
Yeah.
stadium than there'd been in a while.
Well, it was
You
the record
know.
holder. Or is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
It
Yeah.
was the record holder for
Yeah.
however long. Other one that comes to mind from that relative era, that decade, I guess, so to speak, the Jimmy Clausen game.
Yep.
The Jimmy Clausen is going to save Notre Dame football and then comes to Happy Valley and doesn't know how to play football. Um, I think that's I think that's relatively it. I think the 9 overtime is a good one. I think that's probably the most recent one on the list.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting, but it wasn't. It was kind of like it's in the 6-4 family, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like meaningful. Like oh, this is what a different program is like meaningful. Like well, nobody else has one of those.
Yeah,
Lucky
right.
us, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
Um, and you're gonna see that you like in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're gonna see that game played and talked about, etc. Um, yeah, I think you could throw Iowa 2017 on there. Just because that's Saquon's best game ever, and then Juwan Johnson makes the catch at the end of the game. No, we got a good. I feel like we got a comprehensive list. This was a
Yeah,
good prompt.
and I'll be interested to see what the people come up with. Like I mean, we'll ask
Yeah.
people chime in, obviously. So yeah,
And we're gonna write these and explain these picks a little deeper, right? Okay, perfect.
yep,
So yeah,
yep.
we're gonna do that
Makes
this
sense.
week, and then we'll kind of probably have a form or something you can fill out, or you can nominate a game. Um, yeah, I think these are the essential games to know as a Penn Stater. Would be the best way to put that. Old guy, young guy. What is
Okay,
it? Oh boy.
it's not a question of do you think this. Well, I guess I think, and I'm curious about your reaction. I think TV ad makers should not be allowed to use
Mm,
doorbells in commercials because it
mhm.
drives freaking dog. I think there should be a penalty. I think, and not even a penalty. It can be proactive. If you decide to have, if you're a national maker and you make a commercial doorbells in, you've got to give $100 to the SPCA every time that commercial airs,
I
because people's
yeah.
dogs are going and barking at the door.
I listen. I am all for the First Amendment. I am all for free speech, but this is where we draw the line. Like I think the founding fathers did not think through the Constitution this way, and it's specifically with the doorbell. As the parent of a reactive wiener dog, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Marty will bark at, when ESPN shows and it's like you're watching the game and then they pull up the like little top bar and it's like the
Oh yeah, yeah,
upcoming
the sound,
games
yeah, yeah,
and it like makes like almost like the NFL draft
yeah.
noise. He'll
Yep.
bark at that. He will also bark at the NFL draft noise. So some of that is me as a pet parent probably could do a better job of telling him that's not a doorbell. That's not an alert
Right,
sound
and
that you
I'm
need to
okay.
bark
Right,
at, but
but the
no.
doorbell's just
Doorbells, yeah.
everybody. It's just wrong. Like
We're talking about the
it,
Wingstop commercial.
yes, well, I think it
That's
was Wingstop,
yeah.
but there's other ones that I've heard too. Like no doorbell signs in your commercials, and if you're gonna do it, it's gonna air. You got to pledge as part of your process.
And
To
it's
make a
funny
donation to
because I
charity.
feel like people have picked up on like it's gotten worse over time, so to speak. Like it's like people are like, this is fine, this is no longer fine. And now that everybody absolutely hates it. Because I saw multiple people complaining about it yesterday.
Oh wow,
Um,
okay, so there we go. See, I
so
told you we
yes.
could all get behind this idea.
Okay. So I have another quick little guy I'm curious. What's your first James Earl Jones role that you think of?
Oh, that's good. The one where he was in the prize fighter was the Jack Johnson story. Did he do the
Okay.
Jack Johnson story?
Mine is Sea Mine's Field of Dreams, and then probably The Lion King after that. But
I mean, Field of Dreams I mean, he's great, and it resonates and it touches all the bases. And sorry about the pun, but I thought about the Jack Johnson biopic or whatever it was when I saw
Okay.
it. So
Okay. All right. I was curious on that.
yeah, The
All
Great
right.
White Hope. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing I think of him
The
from,
good thing is you're going to get to see all those in the next week or so.
yeah, the other thing that I think of is he does the pregame pump up video for Michigan, and it's a very cool
Yes.
experience. He's done that for quite a while, at least the last 5-ish years, and it's a cool experience. So
Does that remain?
what
What
I
is the good taste or bad taste in that?
oh, it is the one thing that I'm like, I'm jealous of that.
But I'm
Jealous of
saying
that.
now that he's not with us anymore, does it remain?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I think yeah.
I mean,
I
Alabama
think
still has Bear Bryant's voice in their preseason stuff, pregame stuff, which I thought was cool too.
yeah.
You know, they have like a
Well,
recording from Bear, talking through their hype video.
I mean, even I think Ohio State has some of their older coaches. I mean, it was not to go back to the beginning of this podcast, but to go back to the beginning of this podcast, it's very interesting to notice that the pump up video has changed this year and is very much focused on the Franklin era. There are shots from other teams like pre-Franklin, like that some of those national championship teams and the 90s, etc. But it's very much more focused on the current present day Penn State,
Well, it's been a
which I thought was
decade. I
interesting.
mean, at some point,
No, I
I
agree with that. I agree
uh,
with that. But like even last year, Joe was in it and Bill O'Brien were in it. And
yep.
Bill O'Brien being added into it was interesting to me because of everything we've kind of been told that like they might not have had a good relationship at Maryland, and now like apparently they're best friends or something. I don't know, but there's an interesting story to be written there. All right. Anything else we covered this week? Or I forgot to cover this week. I feel like we got everything. That was a good
No,
episode.
quick, efficient. There you go.
Um, we will have that 5 essential games from both of us this week, probably Wednesday-ish, I would say, maybe Thursday. We'll put that out, put the survey out. We could probably share some of your results on Monday. Then we'll kind of get back into game week mode. 20% off Snoil shirts this week, so buy those. Um, what else? Anything else? Any
No,
other?
enjoy your week without Penn State football.
Yeah, going to a couple concerts this weekend. Going to my first music festival. Is what this is. So
So we'll
I'm
get a report on that. That's
yeah.
great.
So website's called stuffsummersays.com. On that website there's a section called with
Steve,
Steve. 5 stars, thumbs up, subscribe. Thank everybody that's read the blog. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter because you can save on that stuff that you're gonna buy. And if you feel like emailing us, my email is Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
perfect. And then lastly, my Twitter handle is at stuffsummersays. Steve's is
At Steve Samsel.
see ya.